Berlin-Brandenburg Academy of Science. My main job is I'm doing research on German literature, but I have the position of women's representative here on the Academy, so I try to make sure that equality is fulfilled on our working place.
My name is Dr. Mujtaba Ali Ihsani, and I'm currently working as a research scientist at the National Discrimination and Racism Monitor, which is part of the German Center for Integration and Migration Studies.
Can you tell us about Nadira's work on gender equality?
So what I do for Nadira, which is the National Discrimination and Racism Monitor, is that I work with the Nadira panel. So this panel consists of around, in the recruiting wave, we had around 20,000 respondents, of which around 13 to 14,000 were of migration background. The rest were without migration background. And so we take their survey data and then try to analyze sort of discrimination and racism taking place in Germany. And so this is also, we also have, this is sort of representative of the German population as well, so we have weights that make the sample representative.
My name is Gisela Romain. I'm Deputy Gender Equality Officer of the Department of Education and Psychology. The actual position is vacant at the moment, so that's why I am the only one in that sense. And I've been in this position now for 3.5 years.
I think that's so important. And when you start in the school in Germany, there are often the girls have better grades than the boys. And you think, we are equal, everything is fine, I have the same chances. But the older you get, you more the ways they separate. And the male, the boys, the men go upwards, you say, and the female often they get children, they stay at home, they stay with their family, and then they also in the science they stay at a certain level.
Well, I find it a very important field, although at our faculty the conditions are quite good, but still I think there's a lot of room for improvement. And I had been working at the university for maybe 8 years at the time, and I saw there was some need for improvement. We had some ideas, me and my then time colleague, of projects we'd like to implement. And
all genders should have the same chances. And even if their lives go different ways, I mean, of course, someone has to care about the children, and women have to stop working for a certain time when they are pregnant or deliver. But this should be in the system that they still can work and do their career. I think the most important things are transparency, that you first really make open, clear, visible how many male and female are working and how the careers are going, and so that's the first thing. Then probably you see that the chances are not equal, and then you should think about easy rules and make sure that they are really fulfilled. And beside of this basic work, you should empower women and you should work on the soft skills.
Yeah, I'll try to define gender equality. Well, generally when you talk about equality, there is usually this difference in sort of what is called as equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome. And I think minimal equality is this idea of equality of opportunity, whereby all men and women should have, of course, the equal opportunity to be equally successful in life. So again, this is also very difficult to achieve.
A woman should be, the percentage of women should be equal to men at at the least in every part, or should be equal to the percentage of the group that is in the status immediately below. So if I have 80% students who are female, I should have 80% research assistants who are female. So like this is our model that we think. Yeah. So what we actually have is that towards the top, the percentage gets less and less.
The one side are the responsibles, like the committees for applications, who are doing the job interviews. They have maybe stereotypes in their minds, and it's important then, yes, to make them understand that maybe this woman is very good and qualified, even if she presents herself in another way, or if she has a different career.
The biggest challenge really is not so much where we have structural, quite good conditions, I think. I honestly think we have too little time. If we had more time, for meetings to discuss, for example, I would love to have meetings with every department, every smaller, unit, and discuss where do we implement this in research, where do you see this in education. But we have very little time, and that is actually one big barrier.
If the capacity increases, the human capacity, would this compensate time?
Yeah, if we had, it depends on the working conditions, but yes, this would be a structural thing, but I don't think this will change. So this is one issue which I face now at the moment.
This idea of making transparent the underrepresentation, if there is any, between the genders, and then making simple rules to work against it, like saying, okay, up to the point of equality, we prefer having the same qualification, we prefer the female candidate. For the individuals, like you said, working on confidence, also cultivating solidarity among women.
Well, of course, it depends on where you are. So, of course, if you are based in the developing world, you're based in a country like Egypt, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of improving gender equality. Like, of course, you could learn from the German example in terms of giving women paid leave, especially when they become mothers. That's one thing that's very attractive about the German labor market. Of course, have several protections for women so that they can work. We live in Berlin here, for example. Also, we can send your child to kindergarten once he's 1 year old. So once the mother finishes sort of leave that she gets from the government, she can then send her child to kindergarten at 1. And here the kindergartens, you can have your child all day at the kindergarten. And also in Berlin especially, you don't even need to pay for kindergarten. And so everyone can afford their child to send their child to kindergarten. You probably just have to pay for food. There's also a very minimal amount of money. So of course, you have a lot of ease for women here, especially to be working and sort of also having some sort of family life as well.
I think what is of an advantage is that we have structures that are established, and by law, for example, we have to be part of every committee. And often you think that, for example, a topic on the agenda is not relevant. And then when you look into the details, you realize there is a barrier for women or a gender issue that's related that no one thought of before. So I think the legal framework is actually very, very important to have it in place. The other thing is, of course, the cultural acceptance. And I think from our experience, what makes it, what helps is if you give people concrete examples, why, what effect it has for people. And then they start to understand. If I bring an example and say, but look, this and this happened, then we have higher chances of reaching people than if it's just an abstract, and men then sometimes see it as a threat. Yeah, it has. I think it has lots of potential, but also drawbacks. For example, in my classes, I now often have them. The students should attend, but those who cannot because of a sick child or whatever, I have a small device, meeting owl, and I put it on the table, and so they can.
Hybrid.
Yeah, so I use hybrid settings. So in that case, or for work, that there are a lot of advantages. But we also know that these algorithms can also have negative effects. So I think one has to have a close look at them and see where it's positive and negative, and also being always reachable is maybe also not so good for our health.
We can sort of use technology, because I work with econometrics and statistics, right, in sort of analyzing the data, and we use various ways in finding out sort of experimentally or through various ways in which we can gather data online to find out whether there is discrimination that's taking place in the job market, labor market, especially relating to women. Well, if you're a woman, you have a sort of woman-sounding name, or you have, a picture with a headscarf, etc. You can experimentally find out whether that's having an effect on your chances of getting a job or getting paid a certain amount of money, or what kind of job you're getting.
But we have a questionnaire once a year where we question actually all members of the faculty, men and women and students, people that work in administration up to professors. So we ask how happy they are and what are their needs, and it's more of an open questionnaire, but this is one way that we try to see. And then we also have statistics. I can actually have access to all the statistical things, and yeah.
And do you find people actually like to fill this questionnaire, or you find the struggle from convincing them to fill it?
We started this, me and my colleague, we started new during the first year of COVID. And actually we started it as a questionnaire of how do you feel with COVID and how does it affect you? And the reaction was quite high, because I think everyone had a very strong urge to express themselves, and life had changed so much, especially affecting women actually. One issue that I remember in structural and problems is really not so much how to promote the things here, but actually who gets a position here. And this is something where I try to look at job descriptions, how they are formulated. For example, if it says we expect flexibility, then this is very problematic for women that have children or parents to care of. And so they will not feel encouraged to even apply for a job. So I try to make people sensitive for such small words that make a lot of difference, and encourage, because I look at every job description and I can, make my comments.
We work very closely with the family ministry at the National Discrimination Racism Monitor. So what we, of course, our data shows that, of course, there's discrimination in the marketplace, and of course there's also discrimination when it relates to women of migration background. And so these specific instances are taken into account in whatever, of course, the family ministry can do to protect women, and especially women of migration background. We also try to propose policies to help that. It does have an impact directly, because we're not just indulging in academic work, we're also very closely working, in this case, of course, with the family ministry to implement our findings from our surveys and other various ways in which we monitor discrimination and racism.
I think it is very much an image still in Germany, very, very much, that science and math in particular is something for boys. and the self-confidence of girls, especially in mathematics, is very low. And so we still have an image problem here that I would assume is mostly responsible for this.
How can we make the women actually overcome this barrier?
In the field of to enter university,
yes,
as a field of study, or to work in this field?
Actually, because it is a problem is back to the field of study, so it's previous.
Yeah, it's how to enter the field. I mean, there are quite a few campaigns. We have something called the Girls' Day, where girls have one day of school every year where they're invited into fields that are not typically overrepresented or rather underrepresented, and they can also come to university and do workshops. And so there's a lot of campaigns in that field. There's a lot of, you have to talk to my colleagues at those departments. They're also very active. They have a lot of programs to support, for example, students who have children. So childcare, because care is very often still in the field of women. So there are some programs of support for that. I think research itself has to focus even more than we already do on gender and equality issues, and also look at what is happening. What are the barriers? Why women, for example, our careers here are often. You do not have a fixed position until you're a professor, or it's very rare. So many women then decide this is too risky and they drop out at a certain point. Women were particularly affected because in Germany schools were also closed, and childcare institutions were often closed or half closed. And most of the time it was the women who then had to juggle having the child at home, doing homework with the kids, not homework, actually doing the schooling with the kids, and trying to advance their own career. And very often it's also a problem of room, of space. You have, no separate room to where the kids don't interrupt. So women were particularly affected by COVID. I try to communicate as much as possible with as many people and representatives of all groups as possible, of which this is actually a big part of my time, is being in contact with different groups and inviting them, but also, reaching out to.
In what way do you collaborate with other organizations or individuals to advance gender equality?
First of all, one thing maybe also important, that I, as a gender equality officer, we have lots of committees at our department level, and the gender equality officer is part of every single committee, and these committees are organized in ways that all status groups, like the students, the administration, the research assistants and the professors, are always part of every committee. We have a meeting of all gender equality officers monthly for the whole FU. We also have sort of an organization that is for the whole of Berlin, for all high schools. And I try to connect with all other institutions at the university, but also outside. I try to do a lot of networking. Well, I'm local here, but through the group we have this monthly meeting, and we can also give out statements or wishes. So I address them then to, say, the general gender equality officer of the university. We also sometimes have petitions or things, but mainly my work is actually quite local, but I try to connect.